Sometimes, rather than using conventional clamps, I'll use these PVC tubing clamps. They give plenty of pressure, so they give me good squeeze out with the epoxy. The plywood rings are held in place with a couple of screws, so they're not going to slide around. And the PVC tubing can be moved from side to side so that I can scrape out any excess epoxy, and they take next to no time to make and can be reused, and they don't stick to the epoxy, so I don't need to have any particular protection on them when I'm using them. I'm cleaning my epoxy brushes in acetone during this build. They go into 3 jars, 1, 2 and 3. Soaking in number 1 gets rid of most of the epoxy, and then they get progressively cleaner by soaking in number 2 and then number 3 for about 5 minutes before dabbing out as much of the acetone as possible on the paper towel. So far I haven't had to throw out any brushes, so it's working well. Number 1 is getting pretty gunky, so that'll eventually have to be evaporated. I'll fill that with fresh acetone, and that will become jar number 3. Number 2 will become the new number 1. Number 3 will become the new number 2. Hopefully that will mean that I'll only use maybe 2 or 3 brushes for the entire build. So it's the morning of Wednesday the 28th of May. The hanging knees have had their reinforcing added and they've been joined together. The aft cabin bulkhead has had the reinforcing added on the top and also for the washboards. And the aft hatch support has been epoxied in, and the reinforcing beams have been added to the forward bulkheads. A nifty little gadget that I've added to the workshop for keeping or trying to keep dust under control is from IKEA. It's a trackpad, which is a remote control which has a magnet on it, so it's removable, and it connects to a power point, which I've put over here as a plug, and that is plugged into my dust collector. I've set up a PVC pipe that leads into the centre of the workshop and garage, and then I can have that sitting in either things like my Triton saw bench or the bandsaw or the drop saw. It also can fit into things like my planer and sander, which is why I've got this little piece cable tied onto the back of the duct, because with the magnet that will just sit there until I need it. Push the button, it goes on and off. So just means that I get to use it more often and try and keep the dust under control. Nifty tool. IKEA, $20. The last bit of work today was sanding all the components that I've been building over the last few days, and then filling all the holes from the screws that had held pieces in the right location whilst they were gluing. And I filled them with a thin, thickened epoxy so that the epoxy would drain into the holes. And I spent 15 minutes or so going around and dropping a little bit more epoxy on until the holes were filled. And I've left them flat so the epoxy won't run. Tomorrow I should be able to scrape or sand off the proud epoxy, and then I might have to do it on the other side as well, see how well it went down the holes. Today I concentrated on some more of the components that can be put together before the hull is set up. Everything had to be dry fitted first before it was then epoxied. The other thing I had to do with them was run the hoop pine through my router bench so that I could round over the edge that is either into the cabin or into the lockers. It makes it easier to epoxy them. There are no sharp edges to break down later. The other bits and pieces I did, I have epoxied the little knobs that will go onto the hatches to lock those in place, and I've done a rough sanding of the centerboard blank so that I can work out what I'm going to do with that. So it's the evening of the 30th of May, and I have taken out all of the screws from the components that I've been working on today and have filled them all with epoxy. So tomorrow I should be able to go in and sand all these down flat, and there won't be any holes left in any of the panels. This build uses finger joints rather than the more traditional scarf joints. So to glue these up, I put down a thick piece of plywood, lay some plastic over it, and screwed the first of the panels directly onto the board. Then I moved the second panel so that the finger joint was loosely overlapping, and coated all of the joints with unthickened epoxy to soak the ends of the grain. Then I would fill the gaps between the finger joints with slightly thickened epoxy, and then squeeze the finger joints together and then screw the second panel down. Then I could squeeze out as much of the epoxy as possible and scrape that off, put another piece of plastic down, and then lay the corresponding panel from the other side of the hole on top and make sure that it was aligned properly, and then repeat the process for this one with the unthickened epoxy and thickened epoxy again. To make sure that the joints didn't splay at all, I added a weight on top.